Welcome to Lifetime Talks and our series on performance and longevity with MIORA. I'm Jamie Martin, and I'm here today with Dr. Greg Pippert. He is the medical director of MIORA, and we are talking in this episode about hormone optimization. This one specifically, a women's guide to vitality. We know that there is a rise of hormone issues in women of all ages, and we want to know what we can do to take back control of this aspect of our health. So, Greg, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we're going to dive into this because, as you know, you and I have talked off camera about different things related to this topic. But I really want to dive in right away into why we're seeing such a significant rise in hormone issues among women today, and not just women who are kind of in that menopause phase. Like women at all ages and stages are experiencing hormone issues.
Right. One of the factors is we're just talking about it more.
Yeah.
I think in the past it was a conversation that maybe didn't happen. People just accepted these things as normal occurrences, or they didn't want to share, too much information sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think as a society, we are talking more about these things. I think part of it stems from the fact that we're developing a comfort level around hormones and hormone replacement, and women are recognizing that things can actually be done. And so why not ask about it? Why not have that conversation? But more to your point, why are we seeing more of it now? Are we? Yes, we are. We are. As for an example, really to take the extreme example here, when we think about the early years in a woman's life, we think about the sexual development, so puberty.
Yep.
So ages anywhere from 8 to 18.
Yep.
It's a wide range, but it really can vary. But when we look at the average age that a girl is having her first period,
Yep.
or the average age of sexual development starting, it's gotten younger and younger and younger. We've not mutated.
Mm.
We're physiologically the same as we were 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yet we're seeing these changes in our physiology. So it's not us, it's something that's doing that. There is something driving that.
Yeah.
And that can be multifactorial. In fact, it is multifactorial.
Okay.
So what could those things be? Well, I was just using the example of the younger child, but as we go on through every stage of life, we do things or encounter things that are making a difference. And those things, probably one of the biggest things right now that's going on is the endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now, we're in a wash in chemicals in our lives. Women especially, exposed to fragrances, might be their perfume, yes, but it might be laundry detergent,
Yeah.
fabric sheets. All of those scents contain compounds that may disrupt our endocrine system. So they're called endocrine disrupting compounds. That means they disrupt how the system works. So these compounds may impact how our brain signals the body to release hormones or how it monitors the hormone levels. And they may impact how the hormone and the receptors meet up, how they work together. So if you can't get a receptor and a hormone to join up, they can't do their work. So these chemicals, they're in plastics. So that's why we say, don't microwave in plastic. Don't store your food in plastic.
Yeah.
So they're plastics, pesticides, herbicides, personal care products, things we're putting on ourselves, in ourselves every day. And they're now in our foods too.
Yeah.
We're getting pesticide residues in our food. So these things are impacting how our hormones work. So it's no wonder that we're seeing changes.
Yeah.
But then there's the lifestyle things, the things that we actually do have a little bit more control over. Sleep, for example. We're just not getting enough sleep.
Right. It's the first thing we compromise.
It is. I got more to do. What am I going to do? I'm going to shave a little bit of time off.
Yep.
Well, but then, of course, now we're less productive at the next day, which means that I have to work a little harder and a little longer. I'm going to shave that sleep off. It just becomes this spiral downwards and downwards. It's a never-ending spiral. We need to stop that. But sleep is where we recover.
Mm-hmm.
It's where our brain starts working, but it's also where we make hormones. So when we're not sleeping, we're not making the hormones that we need.
Yep.
So sleep is terribly important. Exercise. We need exercise. We need to move our body. Studies have shown the more consistently we move our body, the better we age,
Yep.
but it's also the better we are in control of our hormones.
Yep.
When we're not exercising, we become insulin resistant. Blood sugars start to go up. We become diabetic. When we're diabetic, our hormones don't work as well.
Yeah.
And everything's connected. It starts a cycle.
It's like this cascade effect of things that just kind of keep going on.
Absolutely.
And
And how much more can you pile onto that?
right.
And then we think about stress. Stress is the biggie.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't have stress these days?
Well, and when you think about women with stuff, there's a
Yeah.
lot of studies about like kind of this mental load that women carry in addition to, you know what I
Mhm.
mean, compared to men. And that's a generalization, right? But there is a lot of research around
Mhm.
this in terms of the additional stress that women carry.
Yes, a lot of female patients talk about their mother guilt.
Yes. Oh,
You know,
yes. I can
it's
relate.
it's 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 the top thing on their list.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to do or not do something because of I'm going to feel guilty related to my children. I'm going to do it
Yes.
for my children. You're going to sacrifice sleep, a good diet, all those things for your children, but stress. So we've got our family concerns, commitments, work commitments, and work doesn't necessarily know how bad things are going at home.
Right.
Then when we start to sleep less, stress levels go up. Now, why does that matter? It's not just me being busy and me taking a lot of time out of my day to do things that I'd rather not be doing. The stress is actually impacting our cortisol levels. So
Mhm.
cortisol is the stress hormone, also adrenaline and noradrenaline. But why is that a problem? Well, cortisol is important. If we didn't have it, you're not going to run from the tiger when it's chasing you. We
Right.
have to have cortisol to do with stress. If we don't have it, nothing's good.
Right.
But too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Our body is wired to see a stressor, deal with a stressor, surge the cortisol, surge the blood sugar, get away from whatever that stressor is, and then de-stress.
Yes.
We're not living that way. We just go from stress to stress to stress to stress,
Hmm.
creating this constant stress load. And now we're talking about hormones here. So why we can talk about cortisol forever. But
We have a whole episode on
oh,
that. We'll point people back for that. There we go.
but why is it important in hormones?
Yeah.
Well, cortisol works in the brain also to impact how the hormones are released,
Mm.
the signaling of how we perceive what our hormone levels are in the body. The body's always checking hormone levels and
Yep.
responding. So cortisol will affect that. Cortisol also affects how the hormone receptor and the hormone interact. So you can have a perfectly wonderfully good hormone level, but if your receptor is not able to join with that hormone, it's like it's not there at all. And we see lots of people who would say, I'm sure I have this, say, pick your hormone deficiency, thyroid deficiency.
Yeah.
You check levels and they look wonderful. They look very normal. But if you talk to them about their stress levels, or even better, measure their cortisol, which could
Yeah.
be serum, salivary testing, urinary testing, measure their cortisol, you're going to find that they are very stressed. And that
Mm.
cortisol is impacting how the hormone is working. And then,
Okay.
talking about all the things that could impact our hormone levels, diet, nutrition.
Well, right. And that was what I was like, kind of what are the symptoms that most often signal a hormonal imbalance in women?
Sure.
Because I mean, what things should we be looking for that could be happening and causing or
Sure.
could be a source of that?
Well, in females, most often it's menstrual irregularities.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sort of thing you're going to see first. Periods may get longer, shorter, heavier, lighter, more PMS, more cramping.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of the earlier changes. You can see acne,
Yeah.
oily skin. But going forward from that, we can see the perimenopausal changes as hormone levels start to become less consistent, start to drop. Those can be your poor sleep, foggy thinking, hot flashes, night sweats, mood issues, depression, anxiety.
Mm.
And then going further forward, then you see tissue issues. So thinning hair, thinning skin, vaginal dryness, low libido.
And that's kind of across the various stages of
Yes, as
life,
we
right?
kinda
Like
get
kind of going
one to
across like
yep,
from like that puberty stage all the way up to perimenopause, menopause. These are some of the shifts that you're going to start to
right.
see.
And throughout time, you'll see different changes in that shift. There's always something, but you'll
Yep.
see different constellations of those depending on what the hormones are doing at the time.
Yep. Let's talk for a minute about that kind of stage between puberty, between perimenopause, those prime reproductive
Mhm,
years. A lot of women use hormonal contraceptives.
mhm,
What are they doing to contribute potentially to a hormone imbalance?
sure. Well, thankfully, the oral contraceptives are doing their job. I
Right.
mean, they're there to prevent pregnancy, and that's their forte, and they do a good job of it. So
Right.
we need them for that purpose. But what are they doing? Well, birth control pills or oral contraceptives usually are a synthetic estrogen and or a synthetic progestin, not progesterone, but a
Okay.
progestin. So they work with the brain and the ovaries basically to suppress ovarian function, to thin the uterine lining, to prevent pregnancy. So they're hormones, but the hormones are not received by the other cells in the body in the same way.
Got
So they
it.
do their job, but they may not do other jobs, which is why in females on birth control, you often see things like mood issues, depression.
Mm.
Women on birth control pills have a much higher than average likelihood of going on an antidepressant medication because that natural progesterone is calming and soothing to the brain.
Okay.
It helps support our mood, and the synthetic is not the same thing. It does not operate in the
It's
same
not
way.
doing the same thing.
And then there's the transition when you go off the hormones or the birth control. There's a period of hormonal recalibration, you might say, where the body's trying to figure out, okay, I got to do this on my own now.
Yeah.
And there can be a period of time when things are irregular, and you really don't know where you're going to end up until you're
Okay.
there.
Okay, got it. So you mentioned a couple of these hormones that we have, but let's talk about the key female sex hormones and the roles that they play. And there are about 5 of them, I believe. So we'll start with estrogen.
Sure. So estrogen is primarily we think about it for sexual development, female sexual development, although men need estrogen too.
Yeah.
So estrogen, positive things. It's protective for heart.
Mm.
We don't think about that much. Women, when they're deficient, have a higher risk of heart disease.
Yeah.
Estrogen is also tissue supportive. It's our skin, it's our hair,
Mhm.
fingernails. But estrogen is there for reproduction, sexual development, as I said earlier. It's there for vaginal dryness, to prevent vaginal dryness. Estrogen is in excess. So let's think about excess. So
Yeah.
excess endometriosis,
Okay.
PMS.
Got it.
So on the low end, when we're missing estrogen, it would be things like hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, depression, anxiety. On the high end, it's irritability, PMS.
Got it. So you kind of got the spectrum there.
Yes.
Okay. How about progesterone?
Yeah. Progesterone, in essence, when we have it in the reproductive years, is there to support the endometrial lining to facilitate pregnancy.
Right.
But it balances estrogen. It's also brain protective. It helps with mood. It can help with skin and hair.
Right. Okay. The one that we often think is for men only,
Yes.
testosterone. We all know that women need some testosterone too.
Yes, absolutely. So testosterone goes down as you age, and we don't, like I say, assign that to a female issue, but it can help with muscle mass. And part of aging is not losing muscle.
Right. We have to maintain that. And we start to lose muscle
do.
typically starting in our 30s is when it starts to naturally decrease.
And supporting testosterone, or at least maintaining a good testosterone level, can help prevent that. It also helps with libido, just strength, bone health. And I didn't mention that with estrogen. Estrogen is a huge, huge factor in bone health and preventing osteoporosis.
Got it. So going back to that for just a second, I mean, that's important because when estrogen drops in menopause, that's often when you hear about women having their first fracture or breaking something for the first time.
hmm
Okay.
Absolutely. So which can be life altering.
Yep. And have a lot of consequences. Okay. DHEA.
Yeah. So DHA is an adrenal hormone. It is a precursor or raw material for making all of the other hormones.
Okay.
But because it's an adrenal hormone, it also helps with stress tolerance. Now, when we think about excess DHEA, that can be like acne, oily skin, but deficient DHEA, that can also be fatigue, foggy thinking.
Okay. And last one, DHT.
Yeah. So DHT is a byproduct of testosterone.
Okay.
It's very powerful, plugs into the testosterone receptor very well. The problem is it plugs into the receptor very well. So we get the testosterone excess symptoms when we expose ourselves to too much DHT. That's hair loss and acne in females.
Okay. Got it. So what about sex hormones' effects on other systems in our body, on heart health, brain function, joints, digestion? You've alluded to some of these things, but let's talk about it because they're not just singularly focused on one aspect of our health.
Right. So cardiac health is one of the things that we didn't think about much in the past. But women's heart disease risk increases as their estrogen drops.
Yep.
So right around that time of perimenopause, menopause. So heart is going to respond very well to estrogen. It actually helps with cardiac contractility. It helps with the heart muscle to be healthy. It also helps with dilating blood vessels, blood vessel compliance. We have to have healthy blood flow, so estrogen can be very helpful there. When we think about, we had heart health, we had brain health. So
Yes.
we need hormones for our brain. And any woman in perimenopause will tell you, I feel foggy. I don't feel like the thoughts are coming as fluidly. So we can see foggy thinking, but there's also the mood component to that. There's depression, there's anxiety. Progesterone can be helpful, estrogen can be helpful.
Yep.
And then digestion. So we need good hormones to maintain good general gastrointestinal motility, prevent constipation. But also excess hormones can sometimes produce bloating.
So some of those uncomfortable feelings that we get.
PMS bloating, some people describe.
How about joint health? So I heard this study, or maybe it wasn't a study, it was a fact on another podcast at one point about a woman who was having a lot of like cold shoulder. And I've heard about that a lot in women in perimenopause or menopause. And it was like, really, that was tied to what they found. What they talked about was that it was kind of tied to estrogen levels. So let's talk about joint health.
Estrogen is good for joint health, bone health, but also joint health.
Got it.
cartilage, joint lubrication. So yes, a frozen shoulder, something that's stiff. As estrogen drops, women will start to say, I just feel creaky. I feel
Mm.
old. I feel like I'm getting up in the morning and everything is stiff.
They'll just feel a little creakier.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel a few of those things from time to time, just to be just very transparent here. Why not? Okay, so in this case, as you're noticing some of these things, what are some of the hormone tests, like the specific hormone tests that someone might request if they want to get a really comprehensive look at their current hormone status?
So obviously you'd want to check estrogen, progesterone, the DHEA sulfate, so DHEAS, testosterone, even in a woman.
Yep.
You may eventually want to look at DHT. It's not on my normal panel, but it's an important hormone to look at.
Yep.
That's the core hormones, but then you also think about looking at FSH and LH.
Okay,
So
so what are those?
those are FSH is follicle stimulating hormone,
Yep.
LH is luteinizing hormone. So
Yep.
those are the pituitary gland in the brain sensing how much hormone is floating around in the bloodstream and trying then to stimulate the ovaries in this case to produce more hormones. So
Okay.
it's kind of think about it like the thermostat on your wall.
Got
So if
it.
we see FSH and LH discordant or off from what you would expect with the hormones, we know that there's instability there.
Okay.
Also, we need to think about other hormones, thyroid hormone, and especially cortisol. So even though we're talking sex hormones here,
Yep.
we need to look at thyroid because there's so much overlap and thyroid interacts quite significantly with hormones, but cortisol especially, it impacts everything.
Well, and we have talked on this podcast, both in this series and just broadly. I mean, there's no one thing that's operating in isolation in our bodies. Like
Mhm.
there is these different ways that we affect each other. You can pull one thread of the web and another part moves or is affected. So we have to be cognizant. So we want to make sure we're getting again that fuller picture of what this looks like, right? And
Correct.
what's really at the root of what
Mhm.
might be happening too.
Right. And it's oftentimes looking deep inside ourselves to say, how am I sabotaging myself? What
Right.
do I have control of? Because I
Exactly.
can't control my own hormones, but I can control some of the things that may impact those hormones.
Well, and that brings me to that kind of like, well, what then? So now I have all this information about my hormones. Like, where do you start in terms of like working with someone? There are, I know we can talk, we're going to talk about bioidentical hormone replacement as one thing,
Mhm.
but once you have that full panel back, what's the next step?
So the next step is really just finding someone that you're comfortable working with, somebody
Mhm.
that is well versed in the area and is comfortable having a conversation with you as an individual,
Right.
listening to your concerns and trying to figure out again root cause. Where did some of this start? So there's just finding that advocate for you.
Yep.
That would be the first step, really.
Yep. Okay. So let's talk about the different paths because we keep hearing about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. There's been some studies that have come out in the past that have caused a lot of concerns around it. That those have since been debunked. But let's talk about the rise in kind of using BHRT for hormone health.
Yeah. So just to talk about the term bioidentical,
Yeah,
just for reference. So
absolutely.
bioidentical means that yes, it's a hormone that's made in a lab,
Hmm.
but it's made to the exact chemical composition and structure that your body would make it. So your body can't tell the difference. I mean, they are apples to apples.
Yep.
So that's why it's a bioidentical. Now, when we think about synthetic hormones, those still function on a certain level as a hormone by plugging into the receptor, but because they're not the same shape,
Okay.
they may do things a little differently, a little harder, a little softer. They might stimulate other receptors, have unintended consequences, which is some of what we've seen with, non-bioidentical hormones. So
Yeah.
take, for example, the Women's Health Initiative study. 2002 was stopped because of stroke, blood clot, heart attack, and breast cancer.
Yes.
Ultimately, talking about the debunking, the breast cancer was found to be related to the synthetic progestin that was used, which is different than the bioidentical progestin, but micronized progesterone that
Yep.
we use. And studies have shown that that does not increase the risk of breast cancer. So it's all in what you're using and how you use it.
Yep. So let's say you want to go the route of like progesterone.
Mhm.
So like what does that look like for somebody?
So progesterone comes in a few forms. It comes in capsules that you can take. There's creams you can use. There's
Yep.
suppositories. There's sublingual lozenges or drops.
Yeah.
Typically, progesterone is dosed, once a day,
Hmm.
and it's important with all hormones when you're using them to look at not only how you feel like you're responding symptom-wise, but also the level.
Yeah.
Levels are partly a gauge of effectiveness,
Yep.
but I look at them as much a gauge of safety to make
Okay.
sure that we're not exceeding a level that maybe we shouldn't cross, or maybe we're actually making sure we're getting sufficiency. So we've got a good level, symptoms aren't better. There's a problem somewhere else.
Right. Okay, so we know that there's these options. We got these tests, we got all these things. What I do know is unique about like the way we work with people at Miora is that it's really about the whole lifestyle. It's not just about the medical side of it or the therapeutic. It's also how does this fit in with other lifestyle habits and factors. So talk about why that is important, whether or not you're using BHRT or not.
Sure. I mean, we know from studies that we can impact how our hormones work by doing different things in our lives.
Yep.
I said, like sleep. We make hormones in our sleep. We don't make as much cortisol when we sleep well. So it's important to think about the pillars of things that we were referring to earlier. Sleep, diet. Our diets are poor these days.
Yeah.
Too many calories, really poor nutrition.
Right.
And if we're not getting the right micronutrients, it's really hard to make a hormone if you don't give the body the building blocks. So we got
Right.
nutrition aspects in there. Exercise, if we're not moving the body, things
Yeah.
don't work the same. Diabetic, blood sugar issues, and social things. We need to get that connection. We need to also have social outlets. We need to have relaxation, that downtime, which helps our cortisol, but helps us to be better human beings.
Yep.
So if we're not working with all of those things, we're not taking all of those things into consideration, we're just throwing a Band-Aid on something.
Right.
We're not fixing the problem, because it's way easier to feel okay and do very little. It's a little harder to feel awesome,
Right.
but it's worth the effort.
Right, and but that's where we can kinda get comfortable with that baseline of okay, because it's like,
Mhm.
I'm not sick, I'm not, like, just I can't get off the couch or whatever in many cases, but you're getting by day to day.
Yeah.
But that l being able to get to that place where you feel awesome, like, that's a whole new baseline, and
It
then
is.
where do you go from there?
It is. Well, I mean,
Like, that's
yeah.
yeah.
And I see that. You'll see somebody and they come in for a first visit and they're like describing all their maladies,
Yeah.
what's wrong. They feel terrible. You see them back for a second visit.
Yeah.
It's like, things are so much better. I feel wonderful. This is awesome. Yet when you talk to them, it's like, oh yeah, I'm still waking up at night, and oh, I still have 2 hot flashes, but that is so much better than it was. So then we have to
Still
take a step back
opportunities,
and say,
right?
yeah, we have
Yeah.
opportunity to make this even better.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome. How about supporting we talk a lot about, like, supplements and what are some strategic supplementation strategies that might be especially useful for women in supporting hormone health?
yeah, for supporting hormone health, I'm a fan of a good pharmaceutical grade multivitamin,
Mm,
just because it fills the gaps in the micronutrients we're not getting in our
yeah.
diet. I do like fish oil. For the omega-3 to omega-6 balance, we're getting way too much omega-6 in our
Yeah.
seed oils. And you need omega-3s to make hormones, to make tissue compliant, blood vessels compliant.
Yep.
I love probiotics because so much of the immune system is in our gut.
Yep.
And if we don't have the gut happy, a lot of things don't work, including hormones.
Right.
I would say fiber,
Mm,
really underappreciated nutrient when it comes to hormones, because fiber allows us to bind up excess hormones, excrete them. Fiber helps to maintain the good, healthy bacteria, which really impact our hormone levels. So it's important to get plenty of fiber in our diet. There's also magnesium,
mhm.
zinc, um, iodine, selenium for thyroid hormones. So there's a lot of micronutrients that we need to think about, but a lot of those are taken into consideration when they're formulating a good pharmaceutical grade multivitamin.
Awesome. We've got those kind of foundational ones. Anything like we've talked in different episodes, like adaptogens and things like that. Anything that becomes a little bit more targeted, potentially, depending on the unique situation that a woman might be in.
So if we're thinking about stress, cortisol, because we keep coming back to that,
Mm-hmm.
L-theanine, derivative of green tea,
Yep.
one of my favorite supplements. It really can be calming without being sedating, kind of takes the edge off. Ashwagandha, another adaptogenic herb, really can be helpful with stress
Yep.
tolerance. But then we think about herbs or even nutrients that can be helpful from a hormone world. Things like diindol methane or DIM, that's a broccoli-derived supplement that helps with estrogen metabolism.
Okay.
Really safe.
Okay, so you've got this information at hand. Now, what do I do as a woman who's like, how do I build a sustainable, personalized plan in partnership with a healthcare provider?
Well, first, consistency is important.
Yeah.
Consistency wins over perfection every time.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out maybe where we're sabotaging ourselves.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but we are.
Right.
I'm going to correct my sleep. I'm going to correct my diet. I'm going to correct my exercise, my personal relations. But realize that I'm going to have good days and bad days.
Yeah. There's always ups and downs.
Yes. And
Right.
so we need to forgive ourselves and move on. Taking on things that are manageable, small things that can become a habit. But the most impactful things, typically sleep and stress reduction.
Yeah.
If we can impact those, a lot of other stuff falls into place, because it's a lot easier to exercise when you're not tired, when you recover well.
Well, and when you've slept well, you often again, that affects, like, what you wanna eat sometimes
Absolutely.
versus other things. So again, cascade effect of choices. In this case, if you're sleeping well, it can be in the positive direction for all of
Mhm.
these things, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Is there anything we missed or you wanna make sure we cover before we wrap up this episode?
Well, I would say we've missed a lot because there's so much we can talk about.
Well, that's why we have more
I know,
other
not an
episodes.
intentional miss, but no, but there's so much more we could talk about. But really, when I think about how we approach this,
Yeah.
is for women to be aware that there is a way to take care of these symptoms. It's not just something we just deal with in silence and just tolerate.
Mhm.
We as providers can help. So again, finding someone that is well versed in the field, is comfortable working with you as an individual, because
Mhm.
maybe what they suggest you don't feel is right. Well, they have to honor that.
Yeah.
Finding the ways to adjust our lifestyle,
Yeah.
fix our own problems. So somebody just says, "Well, here's your prescription for, say, an estradiol patch that'll make you all better."
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful, but it's not the end all.
Right.
Somebody is willing to look outside the box and within you to say, what can we do to fix the inner workings to make everything else work better?
Yeah. Well, and I just want to add, I think what's so important that you said there is that kind of the relationship between the provider and the patient, because it has to be kind of this back and forth and like what's actually sustainable in your life right now. Like at this phase, at this time right now, this might work or it might not, but being very realistic and very honest about that and being willing then to revisit it over time
Mhm.
as shifts happen.
We talk about we're shooting at a moving target
Yeah.
that may be moving in a 28-day cycle, or maybe he's talking at a moving target that's varying over years, but it's still a moving target. So you're correct. What worked today
Yeah.
might not be appropriate, 2 years from now. So just being on top of that, continuing testing, continuing to ask the questions. How are you doing? Has anything shifted?
Yep. Okay. Like I said, we covered a lot. I want to point our listeners and viewers, we have covered hormones in depth in a panel in a longer session. We can find that online. Miora.lifetime.life has lots of resources. Experiencelife.lifetime.life will point people to as well, because we can go more in depth and we will go more in depth on many of these topics in future episodes. But Greg, thank you for joining me.
Oh,
Thanks for going in on this topic.
thanks for having me.